Welcome to this lesson on the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union. As you already have heard from class, the United States wins the Cold War, but let's talk a little bit about how the Cold War ends and how the Soviet Union actually collapses for a U.S. win. Remember to watch the video one time through without looking at your notes, then fill in as many things as you remember, and finally go back and copy what you need to as you rewatch the video. And you can rewind and restart the video as many times as you need. The first problem happening in the Soviet Union is that there are many shortages. Shortages of food, clothing, and products that people need. If you look at the picture in the bottom right of the screen, you see people standing in long lines outside of stores. These lines become a characteristic of the Soviet Union as the Cold War is coming to an end. People can't get the things that they need. They actually pay other people to stand in line for them and stand in line in multiple lines. And this is part of the problem with communism. The other issue is the lack of freedoms. The lack of freedom of speech, religion, of the press, and like we talked about before, the freedom of choice. These people don't have choices where they can get their products. There's only one type of product, and they start to see as the Cold War ends that the countries in the West using capitalism don't have these same problems that the Soviet Union has. The Berlin Wall is taken down in 1989. So as you can see from these pictures, these are people tearing down the wall. Obviously they're on the west side of the wall, because if you look over here, this picture has the graffiti on the left, so this is West Berlin where the people can walk right up to the wall. And then the east side here is blank, and this is what we talked about called no man's land, and this is the other fence to keep people in East Berlin. This wall is taken down in 1989 when the East German communist government falls apart. You can see from this picture, the people of Germany are very excited about reuniting as one country. They took down the wall in 1989. You can see them here. There's an opening in it, people standing on top of it. And this wall separated these two countries for 27 years. In 1990, East and West Germany were reunited into one country, which today you know as Germany. They adopt democracy as the entire country, and today they have a strong, stable economy throughout the whole country. There's still a lot of construction going on in Berlin, which was located up here because it fell behind the Soviet bloc a lot of the time. So that's one sign that the Cold War is coming to a rapid ending. The other major sign that the Cold War is ending is the breakup of the Soviet Union into independent countries. So if you look at this map on this page, you can see that the countries behind the Soviet bloc, so that means the group of Soviet countries, these light pink ones become independent countries. So if you see here on this map, you've got the USSR, so the Soviet Union over here, and these are countries that they controlled. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, and all of these countries become independent countries if you look at the dates 1989, 1990. So that's another sign that the Cold War is rapidly coming to a close. In 1991, the president of the Soviet Union, he's called a president even though he's not the same type of president we would have in America, resigned. That means he quit from office, and that disbanded the Soviet Union. Okay, so you can see there that Europe is now divided into a more familiar landscape like you might know today. And the colored countries, colored in, they are former Soviet-occupied countries. So if you look and see, the Soviets had a large amount of control over Europe, especially Eastern Europe, and then we talked about how Western Europe aligns itself more with the United States. Okay. The end of the Soviet government means the end of the Cold War. So you see from this picture, Mikhail Gorbachev, he was the president of the Soviet Union who resigned. He is shaking hands with President Ronald Reagan, who was president of the United States at the time. And in class, when you come, we'll watch a video of Reagan's speech asking the Soviets to take down the Berlin Wall. And this is a map of the former Soviet area today. You can see Russia was the biggest country in the Soviet Union, and they still remain very large today. You may have some current tie-ins with the news on issues happening between Russia and the Ukraine and the U.S. And people kind of get that Cold War feeling back in their stomachs who've been around it for that time. So we'll talk more about that in class as well. In 1990, the United States becomes the only remaining superpower in the world. Now, some might argue against that today, but in 1990, the U.S. is the only remaining superpower. If communism had not collapsed in the late 20th century, the Soviet Union might still be intact today. That means around. And the U.S. might still be fighting the Cold War. So that's what might have happened if the Soviet Union had not fallen apart under communism and people wanted more choices. However, all the problems are not gone. Today, the U.S. fights new challenges, and these started right at the end of the Cold War. Globalization is occurring, and that means that countries are more connected. We are now linked through trade, information technologies, and communication. This connection is part due to the internet and easier communication and faster modes of transportation. We can now get in touch with anybody anywhere in the world in seconds. The other problems or challenges that the U.S. is facing is the role of the U.S. military intervention around the world. You guys are familiar with the war in Iraq, the Persian Gulf War, and other U.S. military involvements around today. So what is that role? What does that look like? Environmental challenges, what's happening to the water with pollution, greenhouse gases, you hear that all the time in the news, and other global issues. What's our role? Are we helping out the countries or not? Is that the job of the United Nations? And so we are facing challenges with free trade, jobs being outsourced to other countries where labor is cheaper, worldwide diseases. One current one would be the Zika virus, and energy crisis, oil and other resources for energy. So we have new challenges that we're facing in the world today, and we'll talk more about those when we get to our unit on globalization. Please bring to class any questions you might have and rewind this video as many times as you need so that you understand the very end of the Cold War. And thanks for tuning in.